Hello everyone, my name is Adolfo Paz and I'll be talking about type 1 diabetes today. So what is type 1 diabetes? Type 1 diabetes occurs when the blood sugar, also known as blood glucose, is too high. So as the blood glucose is traveling throughout the bloodstream, it is trying to provide energy to the cells. However, when it comes to people with diabetes, they have issues being able to transfer those glucose into the cells. As we can see here in this image, a person without diabetes is producing insulin from the pancreas. The pancreas is actually the sole area where the insulin is being produced. So the insulin is actually a hormone produced by the pancreas to allow glucose to travel between the blood and the cells to provide it energy. However, with someone with type 1 diabetes, the immune system, the T cells, start destroying the insulin, so no insulin is able to make it to the bloodstream, and so therefore there's a buildup of glucose in the bloodstream, and not enough glucose being able to go past, travel to other cells to provide energy. So the immune system attacks the pancreas and inhibits the production of insulin. So what are some symptoms that diabetes can have? Diabetes can increase thirst and urination, increase hunger, blurred vision, fatigue, unexplained weight loss, and they can also have some rare moments too. For the first times, it can be rare for first time symptoms, but of course, nevertheless, it can still happen. We have breath that smells fruity, dry or flesh skin, nausea or vomiting, stomach pain, trouble breathing, and trouble paying attention. Most people don't know that they have type 1 diabetes until it's too late. So usually they would have to look out for these symptoms here. And funny enough, the type 1 sorry, not funny enough, people with type 1 diabetes, it actually occurs more towards kids or younger adults rather than adults. But of course, it can happen at any age. A lot of times, adults who do have diabetes actually have type 2 diabetes instead. Okay, so what are some main causes of diabetes? A lot of times, it is actually due to genetics. So we have gene variants, which are certain changes in genes that can cause diseases to affect different outcomes, especially in this scenario with the pancreas. So diabetes can travel throughout the family tree, as we can see here in this also graph here. Some people can be affected and others cannot. So it just really depends on the genetics of each family member. So of course, it's not only there's no direct link on what causes diabetes, but there are multiple factors that can contribute to it, like other genetic diseases like cystic fibrosis, which leads to swelling and scarring of the pancreas, inhibiting it from also producing insulin. Other than that, we also got hemochromatosis, which produces a lot of harmful levels of iron, which can also affect the pancreas. But not only genetics can affect the pancreas, we also have outside environmental factors such as viruses that can also produce harmful effects, and in some cases can also affect the pancreas too. So it's not just the high blood pressure or high blood sugar, but it's also other things like factors like environmental or genetics. So we have this data here from the CDC, the Center of Disease Control and Prevention, government agency, from 2017 to 2020, and it talks about the different datas, what causes diabetes. So as you can see here, about 72% were smokers, about 90% were who were overweight. We also had about maybe 32% who were physically inactive, and we also had about 80% of them had high blood pressure. So we can see here people who did have issues when it comes to anything blood related, so like blood sugars or blood pressure, a increase in those can develop diabetes. So how does type 1 diabetes function? So as we know, the immune system destroys the pancreas cells that produce insulin, not allowing insulin to travel to other cells. Therefore, the body stops producing insulin. The cells that are destroyed by the immune system is actually called the beta cells. Excuse me. As we see here through the pancreas, we get a closer look at the actual beta cells. And so the beta cells are in what is control of producing and releasing insulin. So they're the ones that are producing the insulin that allow the blood glucose to then have easier travels throughout the cells to provide them energy. As we know, glucose is one of our main providers of energy, and that is one of the the providers of energy that we need when it comes to doing any everyday functions. But what is insulin? Insulin is a hormone, as we said before, that helps the blood glucose get into the bodies of cells for use for energy, like playing, working, studying. So right now you are using insulin from the pancreas to provide your brain energy to study. And of course we need it right now because we are doing finals week, so hopefully you guys are using your insulin very well, and that will lead you guys to better grades. If there is a lack of insulin, there is not enough glucose in the blood to get to your cells, and this can result in your cells lacking energy, and your blood glucose or your blood sugar rises, causing diabetes. So what effects do diabetes bring? Diabetes is just a single issue of constantly providing your body with insulin, but also with a prolonged high blood glucose problems such as heart disease, stroke, kidney disease, eye problems, dental disease, nerve damage, foot problems, depression, and sleep apnea. Since your body can't use glucose for energy, fat can be broken down, which can lead to issues of toxic acids like ketones that spill into your urine. Diabetic ketone acidosis is the name, and it can be life-threatening. So, what are some possible treatments? Controlling your blood sugar is important too, as we can see here. Controlling your blood sugar levels as they begin to rise, the risk of your health also increases as well. And so, by lowering your blood levels, eating healthier, doing exercise, and being more hydrated can help reduce the chances of getting diabetes. And so here we also have different types of insulin when it comes to treatments during people who do have diabetes. There are several types of insulins that are available, and each type work at different speeds, as we can see here. Ones that are more for onset and duration wise, but the more expensive ones do have a longer effect. So different treatments like such as this for people who do have trouble with insulin or during type 1 diabetes, they do have to switch between costs of like $35 for the cheaper ones and the more expensive ones that last longer for like about $131. And how do we diagnose diabetes? Your healthcare provider should have a optimal glucose range before everybody should have a meal. So if you are keeping an eye out, or if you do have about a genetic, if your genetics say that you might develop diabetes, it's always good to look out for those. It's always good to eat about 80 to 120 milligrams DL for people who are under 59 and below, and of course 100 to 140 for people who are above 60 of years of age. So if you want to diagnose it, it's always good to double check with your healthcare provider and then see how much you're eating. But nevertheless, the best option to diagnose is to check your blood glucose level as often as possible. That way, if your body begins to rise for anywhere between, I'd say 200 to 240, you're able to use you should use a over-the-counter ketones test, as we talked about it before. That's so if your blood sugar begins to rise, is one of the issues that diabetes does begin to have, and your ketones start developing, meaning that your body is no longer burning glucose, but now it's burning fat. So this ketone test is able to tell you whether or not if you are burning fat currently rather than glucose. So it is a great way to help you diagnose and catch it a lot earlier. So of course, anything with home blood sugar monitoring is always the best part. These ketones are an indicator in the urine if fat is being burned as a fuel source rather than glucose. And that is the end of my presentation. And I just thought that the reason why type 1 diabetes fits into cell and molecular biology comes from the cells themselves unable to get energy from glucose, meaning that glucose cannot continue making ATP through the Krebs cycle. While other forms are also processed like fats and proteins, glucose is actually the main contributor, of course. As well as other stuff that I wanted to include, like diabetes can be replicated and passed down to other generations through meiosis. Thank you so much.